As we head into the next session, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Ryan Anderson, who is here to speak with us on the question, what is marriage?
The question that I want to ask and then answer is, what is marriage from a policy perspective? What is the state's interest in marriage? How does the state define marriage? How should the state define marriage, and why? Now, I would imagine that everyone in this room is in favor of marriage equality. The other side uses that slogan, and it's a great slogan, and it's a wonderful piece of advertising. It fits on a bumper sticker. You can put an equal sign up as your Facebook icon, and yet it's completely vacuous. Everyone in this room is for marriage equality. We all want the law to treat all marriages equally. What we may disagree with one another in this room about is what sort of relationship is a marriage. So the book that Sharif and Professor George and I co-authored was titled, What is Marriage? Because that's the question that you have to answer before you can then get to considerations of equality. And if you're a lawyer, before you can get to considerations of equal protection of the law, you have to know what it is that the law is trying to protect equally. So what is the marital relationship? Because even those who want to redefine marriage to include the same-sex couple will draw certain lines between what sort of relationship is a marriage, what sort of relationship is not a marriage. And if we're going to draw lines that are based on principle, if we're going to draw lines that reflect the truth, we have to know what sort of a relationship is a marriage and what sort of other consenting adult relationships are non-marital. So that's what I'm going to try to get at in the time that we have here this morning. Now, when we were doing research for the article and then for the book, we tried to read the best philosophers and political theorists who were arguing in favor of redefining marriage. We wanted to see, on their account of marriage, what is their definition? And one of the philosophers that we looked to is John Corvino. He's become a friend of Sharif and mine. And he was saying what really is distinctive about marriage is it establishes your relationship with your number one person. And what sets marriage apart from other relationships is the priority of the relationship. It's your most important relationship. Again, because it's your number one person that the marital relationship establishes. So what sets marriage apart from other relationships will be the intensity of the emotional bond, the priority of the emotional commitment. My co-authors and I think this simply gets marriage wrong because it collapses marriage with companionship in general. It simply makes it the most important companionship relationship, the one that takes priority, the one that's the most intense. And so it can't actually account for any of the distinctive features of what marriage requires, nor can it explain why government should be in the intense companionship business. Why is government in the marriage business if this is what marriage is? So let me say a few words about that, and I'll place a challenge to people in the audience. When we get to the Q&A, I invite you to give an answer to these questions of, if you want to redefine marriage to include the same-sex couple, why would marriage, how you understand it, require that that relationship be permanent, monogamous, and exclusive, and be the type of relationship that a government takes interest in? Because on this account of marriage, where marriage is an intense emotional union of consenting adults, that's something that can be formed by more than two people. There's nothing about intense emotional union just as such that says it has to be between two and only two. Threesomes and foursomes can just as easily form an intense emotional, an intense romantic, an intense caregiving relationship. There's nothing in principle that would require twos. Likewise, there's nothing about that union that would say it has to be sexually exclusive. Some people might argue that you could actually have an enhanced emotional union, an enhanced caregiving relationship, if spouses were free to seek sexual satisfaction outside of marriage. And then lastly, there would be no reason in principle why the union should be permanent, since emotions come and go, love waxes and wanes. So what would demand the pledge of permanency? But then lastly, why would government even be in the marriage business on this definition of what marriage is? If marriage is just about the love lives of consenting adults, why can't we take the state out of the bedroom? And yet those who would redefine marriage want to put the government into more bedrooms. Why? So that's the question. Answer the title question of our book, What is Marriage?, in a way that can account for the distinctive marital norms and can explain why marriage is a distinct public policy issue in the first place. So having said that, having said a little bit about why we think the opposing view fails, let me construct our argument about marriage. And I'm going to do this in 3 steps. First, I'm going to say what we think marriage is from a philosophical perspective. Next, I'll say why we think marriage matters from a policy perspective. And then lastly, I'll say 3 things about likely consequences of redefining marriage. So those will be the 3 broad points, the outline of the talk. What is marriage? Why does marriage matter? What are the consequences of redefining marriage?